Hello out there, and today we are talking about the Kershaw Malt number 5520. And this is a really interesting knife, guys, and it's one that is a big departure for me from the kinds of knives that usually appeal to me. Usually on this channel you'll see knives that are more function valued over form, and this has a lot of flash and just a lot of different aspects to it aesthetically that, aren't usually my thing. But I'm really glad that I picked it up, and it's been a very pleasant surprise from Kershaw so far, and they've done a really good job surprising us with some knives so far this year, and this is no exception. So what I'm going to do today, just because there is so much to talk about with this knife, is I'm going to hit the specs first, and then I'll get into all of the aspects of the functionality of the knife, and then I'll talk about some of the fit and finish aspects, and just how it looks aesthetically and how I feel about that. All right, so starting with the specs, what we have is a 3-inch blade of 8CR13 MOV blade steel, which is standard for Kershaw imported knives from China. And what's really interesting, though, about the blade is that when you're looking at most Tantos, the angle changes generally further up the blade. And so you'll have one edge and then the secondary edge, which is a little bit shorter. Here, both of the edges are right around 1.5 inches, which is really cool. It makes it a very different look. I think it's very appealing, and when we get to the function of the knife, that will come into play as well. All right, and then moving back, you can already see the bronze phosphor washers, which is really nice for a budget knife. This has speed safe opening, flipper only, so there is no thumb stud, and you can see that this flipper will also serve a secondary function as a bottle opener, and we will talk about that at length in just a bit. Nice strong action on this. All right, generally an open frame construction with this blue backspacer that only hits about, I'd say, 2/5 of the way up the knife, so you do have plenty of room to get in there and clean. We do have a full liner that acts as the holder for the speed safe mechanism. There is no milling on the inside of the knife, but the frame, generally speaking, is pretty thin. So there's not too much room for milling, to be honest. And then we have a one-position blue pocket clip, tip up right side only. You do see there will be a little bit of real estate, but it is a pretty nice carry, and you do have this lanyard hole as well if you wanted to use it. All right, the weight on this knife is going to be just a bit high because of the fact that it is a stainless steel frame lock. It is going to come in at 5.1 ounces, and yeah, that's not going to be a deal breaker unless, of course, the knife doesn't fit well in the hand. If the knife carries well and functions well and uses well, then 5.1 ounces for me is not a deal breaker. But for some people, I know it will be, so keep that in mind. All right, so that's the basic outline of the knife, but let's get into how it works. All right, starting with the blade, I like it. I like it a lot. I didn't think I would, but the way this knife functions is really smart. First, we need to talk about the grind, though, because there are some conflicting reports about what type of grind we have here. And, the only place that I found on the internet that said what type of grind it was on Blade HQ, and it says flat ground. And I feel this knife, and I don't think it's flat ground. I've seen other reviews and other videos that have called this a hollow ground knife, and I tend to agree with that. The way that it slices and just the way that this feels, it feels hollow ground to me. So if anybody knows anything for sure or anywhere else where I can find this information, let me know, and I'll either pin your comment or I'll add it to the description of the video so that we can clear this up. But again, the way that it feels, at least in use, it really feels like a hollow ground knife. It slices really well, and one of the things that adds to how it slices is the fact that when you're cutting through, let's say like you're slicing a piece of paper or something, when you get to this secondary angle right here, you can just flick the wrist and cut through the rest of it, which is really neat. It's just really neat thing that you can do. It changes the angle at which you can cut when you have this that secondary angle on the edge. It really helps out and makes slicing even easier. There's just a whole lot less you have to do in terms of moving your arm versus flicking your wrist. So it makes it just really easy on simple tasks like that. And I like that a whole lot. All right, the tip is generally feels pretty strong. I have done some stabbing tasks with it, and I've done a lot of heavy cutting, and the PVD coating has held up really well. Tip has held up really well. Just the finish overall, and we'll talk about more, regarding the finish when I get to the details of the aesthetics, but just everything for the amount of use that this knife has had has held up pretty darn well. All right, other functionality of the knife, the lockup is flawless. All right, very good quality to the construction here with the pivot screw, because I've opened and closed this knife hundreds and hundreds of times, used it a ton, and I have not had to adjust this pivot screw one time. There is zero play, zero up and down, zero side to side, and it still kicks like a mule. So, I mean, there is no issue at all with the way this opens, closes. Centering is really good. So just really happy with that overall. All right. The bottle opener, yeah, it opens bottles. So there you go. That's all you need to know about that. Well, maybe not, because one of the big complaints was that this knife, being the way that it is in the pocket, is going to catch on stuff as you pull it out. All right, so imagine this is your pocket, and actually I'll hold the knife this way. Imagine it's sitting in your pocket like this, and then you've got this hook that as you pull it out of your pocket can hook onto things. I've heard a couple reports about how that is a big issue. What I can say is it really just depends on what you carry in your pocket, because this part, the hook, is facing the middle of the pocket, not the edge, so it's not going to get caught when you're like pulling it out. Like, it's not going to get caught on the side of your pocket, but it might get caught on anything else you keep in the same pocket as your knives. Personally, I only carry my cell phone in the same pocket as my knife, so I don't have an issue. And it really has only been like one or two times where, my pocket's been jumbled up or something, and I'm like trying to pull it out of my pocket when I'm sitting down, and it gets caught a little bit. But that can happen with almost any flipper or any kind of shaped knife. It just, that can tend to happen just depending on how bunched up your pockets are. So I haven't had a huge issue with it, but I have heard of some people, depending on what your style is and what you carry, could be a big thing. One thing you can do is shave down this flipper tab and get rid of the bottle opener and just use it as a regular flipper. I don't know how that will function if you do, but that is an option, and I've seen people doing that as well. All right. What else about the function? I think that's just about it. I mean, the pocket clip is good. It carries well. And, ergonomically. Yeah, let's talk about that. This knife feels good in the hand. It's pretty simple. Do I wish there was jimping? Sure, always wish there was jimping. But it's comfortable. There are a lot of points of contact. Even though this is stainless steel, it's not particularly slick. And there are just a number of places for you to get a little bit of traction and grip and comfort holding onto the frame. So that's a good thing. If you do have large hands, then as you can see, anyone with larger hands than me, and that's a lot of people, will probably start to lose that pinky finger. And so it might be a little less comfortable. You might want to use that lanyard for a little more purchase. One thing that is very cool about this knife, though, is although there is not a set forward choil, there is this gap here that you can actually put your forefinger in and use to choke up. And I don't know that that's recommended, and I don't know that that was part of the design intention, but it really works. There's enough space that you can see that you can do certain tasks, like certain detail work, and not really be afraid of your finger slipping and cutting yourself. So, so that is a good option, and that really does change and improve the ergonomics of the knife. Overall, it still does feel a little bit heavy, but again, that weight is not a deal breaker when you get the knife in your hand, at least not for me. Feels pretty good. I haven't had any issues with that. So, yeah, overall very good there. All right, and then finally, I want to talk about the fit and finish of the knife and the aesthetics. Because, like I said, not really the kind of knife I'd be gravitated towards, not the one that I'd really pick out and say, yeah, that's the one I want to have. And generally speaking, any time that I see a knife like this, I think, gosh, that's a novelty. And already I've said the knife functions really well. It's definitely not a novelty, which is great. But how well did we do for $35, making this a very cool looking knife? really well, actually. They did a great job with this. Overall, just the number of steps that were taken in order to make this knife look the way it does, I'm pretty impressed with it. You know, there are some fit and finish critiques that I have. If I can get that visible, there are some spots in the frame that are just not even. You can see like right there, but that's just in the basic frame, and it's nothing that is really that big of a deal. And it's a whole lot better to have something like that than to have the fit and finish issues in the actual machining, you know, that's really clear and easy to see by everybody who is looking at the knife. You know, all of this machining is done pretty well. It looks good. Like I said earlier, it's held up in use and hasn't really scratched that much. So yeah, just happy with it. No real wear on the back spacer or the clip yet either. So this color seems to be pretty strong. You know, I don't think that you're gonna, you know, nick the pocket clip and all of a sudden start losing this blue. Like that's gonna stand up. All right, one thing that I do not care for with the fit and finish is that this liner for the Speed Safe just doesn't fit the frame quite right. And you can see there's like jimping on it here that is intentional, and it's supposed to stick up, but it also sticks out past the butt of the knife. So just not a perfect flush fit. There we go. You can see that. Not a perfect flush fit. Yeah, it is what it is. Not great, but honestly, if that's the big complaint for the fit and finish of this knife, then there's really not too much to be upset about. All right. Yeah, I just really like the look of it. I like the way they did everything, and they executed it really well. And it's one of those knives that, yeah, if you are out with a bunch of guys and you pull this out to be a bottle opener, then it is going to draw a lot of attention. And that was my big concern, was this is a novelty. It's a knife that you're going to pull out, and yeah, people are going to be like, oh, cool, let's talk about that knife. And then it's not going to be able to cut anything. But this gets the job done. It gets the job done, and it fits a number of different needs for different people. You know, so if you're looking for a knife that you want to be a conversation piece for $35, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good EDC for you, and it will draw a lot of attention and be a cool thing. But if you're just looking for a different kind of design that's just a good user, yeah, this one would work for you as well. I know there are some people that are going to be really drawn to the look of the knife, and some people that are going to be really turned off by the look of the knife. I'm sort of in between, but what sells it for me is the fact that it works. It just works. The design works, and it makes me pretty excited about this designer, GTC, Gustavo Cecchini, I believe his name is. So yeah, I've got a couple other knives or other designs of his that I'm looking at. One of them is this Kershaw Hops, which is the companion piece to the Malt. Haven't gotten around to reviewing this one yet because I haven't used it that much. All right, and so I will talk about that in a future video. But yeah, just really excited to have a knife that has this kind of look and functions just as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. Take care. I will be talking with you soon with more videos. All right, have a good one.